Music has the power to bring people together, to transform emotions, lessen the stress, pain and struggle and distractions of everyday life. On Morning Coffee Guest today, we talk about music. More when we get back from the break. Welcome back to the program. I am Simone Absalom Gale. June 21 is celebrated as World Music Day. The Jamaica Music Museum, JAM, celebrated the day with a focus on cross-cultural influences that have impacted each other's music. With me in studio is Director and Curator of JAM, Mr. Herbie Miller, and Administrator at JAM, Ms. Rosemary Duncan. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Miller, we start with you. What are some of the cultures that have influenced the emergence of Jamaica popular music?
We could start with what is our motto, out of many, one people. So our reggae music is influenced by quite a bit of the cultures that has created this out of many, one idea. If you go all the way back to pre-reggae, to mento music, for example, it has quite a heavy dose of African influence. It also has some Spanish influence, because even the rumba box, that's so much a part of the identity, sound-wise and visually, of mento music, is an instrument that was discovered by workers in the 19th century who migrated to Cuba and brought it back. And it, until this day, is one of the great images of mento music. But even our ska music has been so influenced by rhythm and blues and jump blues and ska and Afro-Cuban music, show music as in Broadway music, cinema music. And while those are performing cultures, we're now thinking of the people. So it's influenced by our Indian population, or Chinese population, and of course overwhelmingly by the African Jamaican presence. And one might say, but I don't hear any Chinese influence in Jamaican music. We might not have had as thriving a Jamaica music industry as we do without the support of our Chinese community. The first to record mento music was Ivan Chin at Chin's radio service on Church Street way back in the late 40s. Beverly's record, Leslie Kong, on Orange Street, right across the road in Parade, was Randy's records. Along the way, we push it forward to the 70s, you have Channel One. Very much so the bands as well, from Kez Chin to Byron Lee, to the supporters and managers of these bands. Many of them were Chinese. And so the money, for instance, Jimmy Cliff's story is amazing. He went there and asked this ice cream parlor proprietor to produce a song for him, and the man said, well, I don't know anything about music, so I can't do that. Jimmy looked up and saw that it was called Beverly's Ice Cream Parlor. He came back the next day with a song called Beverly's, or Darling Beverly, or something of the sort. They recorded him. As we say, the rest is history. So it's influenced by not only sound, but support. As far as Jamaica influencing others in terms of the exchange of cultures, not only musically, but language, style, attitude. I mean, almost everybody wants to be Jamaican.
We definitely have like a presence.
Yes.
Especially in performing.
Even when you're performing, just to be you. You're not on any stage, but the world becomes our stage. You ever travel yet and you see somebody coming toward you, you never know that person from Adams, but just the gait, just the step, just the style, you know it's a Jamaican.
Yeah, the skank,
so,
they call it, you know?
Yeah. And so the music helps to shape those movements, and the movements help to shape the music. Because as you stand there performing and watching dancers, you're trying to put in sound what you're seeing, and they are trying to put in action what they're hearing. So it's very complex, and at the same time, we do it so naturally. So Jamaica is very much influenced by so many other forms of music, Jamaican music, that is, and so many other forms are influenced by our music.
What are some of these forms of music that you would have heard over the years that you can say, you know, they took that style from us, or those keys, I'm hearing the rhythm from my country?
We should start first with what we took from them. For example, you know, Delroy Wilson has this great song called Rain from the Skies. That everybody just thinks is the ultimate rendition. And yet the original is by a very beautiful crooner by the name of Adam Wade. We could go on and on and on. Take even that song by the way that's called One Love. A whole verse was written by Curtis Mayfield in a whole other song that found its way in this One Love song. Mm-hmm. And so we took a lot, borrowed a lot, etc. Mm-hmm. But so have they taken a lot and borrowed a lot, etc. from us. It's not a one-way street.
It's a topic of debate, especially with our African brothers, because with the music coming from West Africa, from like Nigeria and Ghana, Ms. Duncan, you would be able to attest those kind of things as well. We would say, well, they took it from us, because it's nowadays that you're hearing about versions like Afro pop, and they're saying, well, the dance hall influence is in there. But then you would hear our Nigerian brothers and sisters saying, no, we're the originals. People like Fela, those kind of influences, you would have heard it in our Jamaican music. So in some respects, you can't really know what it is, and that's the beauty though of music. It's a melting pot. Now, what your mandate at the Jamaica Music Museum, which I think is just a brilliant idea and concept, because a lot of our culture is stemmed from our music. What are the objectives and mandate of JAM for those of us who are not yet aware of it?
Well, first of all, to harness our culture, in this case music, but everything else around music, and to, as we say, to collect, preserve, and disseminate that culture, not only to Jamaicans, but worldwide. And so that is the mandate. How do we do that? Is by collecting instruments, objects, manuscripts, recordings, periodicals, other kinds of texts, and even costumes. The clothing that some of these artists wear, especially dancehall artists, are very elaborate and exciting. So can you imagine putting some of those things in just an exhibition on the fashion of dancehall? But then all the way back in the ska period, it came with a particular kind of fashion as well. The stingy brim hats, the slim Jim ties, the gun mouth pants, etc., etc. And so each generation had its own expressiveness, its own aesthetic, so to speak. How we dressed, how we acted, how we behaved, how we danced, how we sang, and what we appreciated. And so we try to be as broad as can be in what we collect, how we preserve it, and how we display it in a context that gives us a broader perspective of ourselves rather than just a musical thing.
Interesting. And when you talk about showcasing that, let's talk about World Music Day 2022. How did you celebrate that?
We're celebrating it by we're putting together a small display. I wouldn't go as far to say as an exhibition of different instruments that are identified with other forms of music, but that from time to time creeps into our own music. For example, I mentioned the rumba box before, which people identify more with Jamaica than it does with other places from where it derived. Cuba, for example. Or how you just talked about world music, Afrobeat. How some artists, Big Youth, for example, has infused in his reggae music or a song or two that sort of fella vibe in it. But then, so too, as we said earlier on, have other cultures taken our thing and make it a part of their music.
We're going to get Miss Duncan into the conversation. To take us to the break, though, we're going to be listening to 19-year-old Leopold Smith as he sings I Feel Good by Beres Hammond. Take it away.
I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel good, 'cause your perfume isn't loud, and only I can talk about it. Feel good, feel good. You feel like velvet rubbing over my skin, and then your hair dances under my chin. Wished we were locked out, baby, just the two of us. Yes, every move you make gives me a rush. Oh, whoa, wine some more, show me that love unconditionally. Make believe that we're here alone, just you and me. Take the problems and leave them behind. Don't let it show. Go, baby, go, baby, go, baby, go, baby, go. I feel good when you're wrapped up in my arms, dancing to a reggae song. Feel good, feel good. I feel good, 'cause your perfume isn't loud.
I wish to inform Jamaica that the government has already launched Operation Get Every Illegal Gun. My message today, therefore, is directed to the many young men who have illegal weapons in their possession, who hide the weapons, or as they say, lock them. And I'm speaking as well to the girlfriends, the baby mothers, the sisters and the mothers who give them cover and protection. I'm giving you warning. Put down the gun. Give it up. Leave the gang. Dissociate yourself from the gunmen. Otherwise, the consequences will be grim.
Welcome back to Morning Coffee Guest. Still with me in studio are Director and Curator of JAM, Mr. Herbie Miller, and Administrator at JAM, Ms. Rosemary Duncan. Ms. Duncan, what are some of the programs that JAM has created for young people?
Okay, so JAM is continuously working to develop, to identify, to harness new and emerging talents so that they could become professionals and represent Jamaica on any platform, regionally, locally, internationally. And you would have enjoyed music from Leopold Smith, who is a vocalist. He's now at UA, former student of York Castle High School, and instrumentalist Luke Andrew Mills from Wolmer's Boys High School. JAM, we have this wonderful program called Ground Nation, which is an educational outreach program, which is very popular. And we try to teach, encourage, inform, educate people as far as it concerns culture, Jamaican culture, and our lives. And we're working as a team at the Institute because we have 9 divisions. So there's the Junior Center, which has been instrumental in developing some of Jamaica's most phenomenal talent, including Ashley Grubb Cooper and Daisy Jones. You know, during their childhood, that's where they learn their craft at the Junior Center. So we, JAM, being the most recent addition to the Institute of Jamaica, we've just extended on that decades-long legacy.
What's the response been, this can go for either of you, from the young people? What's the reception when you bring this kind of program to them?
It's incredible. I mean, we've been called to come into the schools and into the youth groups and the youth clubs and youth organizations. And, you know, music is very important. It teaches discipline. It improves memory, increases in creativity and proactiveness and innovation or innovativeness. Mm-hmm. You know, those exposed to music, children, and those who play a music instrument, they perform better at school than those who don't. So the educators and parents and guardians and the students themselves, you know, they're reaching out to us and to bring programs to them. So they don't always have to come to us, we go to them.
I would imagine so. What about you? You've been in this industry, you know, for a long time. Where do you see this going in terms of the reception that you're getting from youngsters now and what you've observed over the years, Mr. Miller?
Of course, there has been a remarkable interest in music production by young people, made more accessible because of modern technology. You know, kids can get a computer and they make a few beats and they learn to rap and sing and what have you. And that has encouraged others to go to places like Edna or to Siretsi Small's wonderful music school. And we turn out musicians who aren't only tied to the technology, but also able to go back to the acoustic instruments, the horns, the trumpets, and so on, and arrange and revisit all the forms, updating it to the present. And so it is a positive thing. I'm not saying that it is the most widespread among our contemporary musicians, but certainly there's a set of musicians who have in a sort of renaissance mood, who are in sort of a kind of renaissance mood, trying to maintain as they move forward. So it's very positive.
I would imagine so. I mean, there's a space for it.
Yes,
there's a space for, you know, entertainers who use the digital instruments. Precisely. And then there's a space for entertainers who have an appetite and appreciation for live music and those kind of stage instruments, as I would call it. Now, in terms of Ground Nation, though, in your opinion, what's the thinking behind pushing forward with that kind of program?
As a youth growing up in East Kingston, I saw Rastafarians from Rockfort at the foot of the Warka Hills who participated in a sort of group reasoning that took on everything. From who was trying to launch Sputniks to the moon, from who were launching satellites and all those sort of scientific things, to the wars for freedom in Africa, whatever was taking place in Europe and throughout the world. But they were also very much interested in what was happening right here at home. All of the social, political, etc. happenings. And they would sit and reason about these things. And as youngsters, a few of us who would have access to just hearing, listening, and understanding there is an education that's taking place outside of the schoolroom. How to hear music, how to engage music beyond just entertainment. Because they would have the drums and the horns, and the chanting, food, and of course, smoking. So when we started Ground Nation at the Institute of Jamaica, at the Jamaica Music Museum, we decided to pattern it off of that sort of informal educational system. Only we now brought it inside of the system in the Institute of Jamaica. But we use that same format. So for example, we had an overarching theme. And over the 4 Sundays of February, Reggae Black History Month, we would address sub-themes, all related to. And so we could look at something like, a very popular one was looking at the artistry and life of Don Drummond. So we could talk about Don from the point of view of his brilliant musicianship, his mental condition, etc. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, as we discuss that with not just scholars, but also psychologists and psychiatrists to deal with how we understood someone who was clinically insane, and yet who made such beautiful music, interpreting our whole thing as people. And so at the end of the reasoning, mm-hmm. we would now have musicians, singers, performers, punctuating that reasoning with performances related to it, and not just performance for performance sake.
Speaking of relating to matters of society and social commentary, I would put it, what do you have in terms of plans for our Diamond Jubilee? Because this is an important milestone for our society. So are you thinking of doing anything, especially with the Groundation?
You know, let me just focus on an exhibition which will last until the end of the celebration. When you're able to see objects, take a simple recording like one made at the point when we celebrated independence, 100 voices singing patriotic songs. And at the same time, juxtaposed with it is the program from August 15 to August 6, 1962. It gives you a better idea of what that moment meant. And we have enough objects to build out an exhibition so you can visually, especially for younger folks like you who weren't around, have an idea of what were the physical features and what were the sounds.
Sounds interesting.
And so on associated with that.
We're running out of time now. Quickly, for those of us who would like to see those displays, where can we see it and how can we contact you to get information regarding those displays and our culture and music?
So JAM is located at 8 Water Lane in Kingston. Mm-hmm. You could call us at 922-0620, mm-hmm. and you could also check us out online. You could via Institute of Jamaica's website, And we look forward to welcoming our guests, and we'd like to thank the many organizations and individuals who've supported us through their contributions. Good News Jamaica and VP Records and Irie FM and Chase and Sly Dunbar and Robbie Shakespeare and Errol Moore, to name a few. And of course, PBC Jamaica, thank you very much for your continued support.
Let us not leave out the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thanks so very much for coming and speaking with us. So this is where we have to leave it, though, on Morning Coffee Guests. Thanks to our special guests, Mr. Herbie Miller and Ms. Rosemary Duncan, and a special thanks to Leopold Smith and Luke Andrew Mills. Until next time, I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Walk good.